When I started asking myself these three questions, it became easier to spot the choices that drain me versus the one that develop me. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you'll still wrestle, but wrestling with the right questions beats running from the wrong ones. Welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast, wisdom from life's turning points and defining moments. I'm your host, Melvin Larry. Listen, have you ever had one of those days where your brain feels like it's stuck in neutral? Not because you're lazy, but because you had to make too many decisions. Well, yeah, I've been there too. And if we're being real, some of us aren't just tired, we're decision tired, not just mentally drained, but emotionally foggy, spiritually numb, and maybe even frustrated with ourselves for how long we've been standing at a crossroad. Well, today, I want to talk about that. Listen, not just the weight of choices, but the wisdom in learning how to make decisions that actually move us forward. So let's get into it. Let's start with this. Every choice you make costs you energy, from what you wear to what to say in a meeting to whether you should stay or go, speak up or stay silent. Now multiply that across 40, 50, 60 decisions a day. No wonder we're worn out. And here's the thing, not all choices are equal. Some pull you backward, some keep you stuck, and some, they launch you forward. The hard part is knowing which is which, especially when you're tired. Look, a tired mind doesn't just make slower decisions, it starts making smaller ones. Let me break that down to what decision fatigue really looks like. Decision fatigue isn't always loud. It doesn't always show up as I'm exhausted. Sometimes it's indecision masked as overthinking, delayed action that looks like caution, but is really fear, saying yes to things you resent later, avoiding opportunities because you're afraid to be wrong, or scrolling, numbing, or procrastinating your way out of choices. Sound familiar? See, when you're navigating life, work, family, faith, finances, and your own healing, decision fatigue can become your default setting without you even realizing it. Some of the world's most disciplined leaders figured this out. Okay. Let me just show you something powerful. All right. Have you ever seen the Queen's Guard? All right. All right. In London. Okay. Look, they stand perfectly still, no movement, no emotion, no flinching, even with crowds around them yelling, waving, trying to break their focus. They don't move. That stillness is not passive, it's trained discipline under pressure. They're taught how to shift their weight subtly, how to focus their brain breathing, and how to manage the fatigue that comes with long stints of silence and stillness. They aren't frozen, they're present. They're trained to stand guard with mental sharpness, even in silence. Now, shift the scene to someone like President Barack Obama, arguably one of the most pressured men on earth during his presidency. He had to make hundreds of decisions a week, sometimes a day, but he figured out something key. He wore usually only blue or gray suits to just to eliminate unnecessary decisions from his day. He said, I'm trying to pare down decisions. I don't want to make decisions about what I'm eating or wearing because I have too many other decisions to make. That's not small, that's strategy. And then there's Steve Jobs, black turtleneck, jeans, New Balance sneakers every day. Why? Because he didn't want to waste mental energy on picking clothes. He wanted to reserve his focus for product development, strategy, and creative innovation. You see the pattern here? Stillness in the guard, simplicity in Obama's wardrobe, uniformity in Jobs' style. Look, they all understood that to make high level decisions, you have to eliminate low level distractions. Simplicity isn't just a style, it's a strategy. There's a hidden pressure to always get it right. Here's the hidden struggle. For men in leadership, especially, men of color, fathers, business owners, we carry this invisible pressure to get it right all the time. No room for error, no space for weakness. But that perfection is pressure. It's draining your clarity. You're training to move or trying to move forward while carrying the weight. And look, not just carrying weight, but carrying the weight of every decision you've ever made, good and bad. I know this intimately. There are moments in my life where I kept replaying old decisions, jobs I left, deals I passed on, things I said or didn't say. Oh my goodness. And that loop kept me from making the next move many times. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because sometimes I was just afraid to choose wrong again. But listen, growth doesn't always come from perfect decisions. It comes from making a clear one, owning it, and moving forward. All right. Look, here's a simple filter that helps me cut through the noise. Does this align with where I'm going? Not just where I am, but where I want to be. Number two is, what's the cost of doing nothing? Sometimes not deciding is the most expensive choice that we can make. Number three is, will this choice move me forward or just make me feel safe? There's a difference between comfort and calling. When I started asking myself these three questions, it became easier to spot the choices that drain me versus the one that develop me. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you'll still wrestle, but wrestling with the right questions beats running from the wrong ones. You've got to eliminate the noise around you. Part of why we get stuck in decision fatigue is because there's just too much noise, opinions, expectations, guilt, social media highlights, church traditions, family pressure, everybody's voice but yours. You need space to think. And I don't just mean a day off, I mean sacred space, mental and emotional room to breathe, reflect, and hear yourself again. The clarity you need is often waiting behind the clutter you won't release. Turn off the noise, turn inward, and listen to what's been trying to rise in you all along. Let me tell you something powerful that happens the moment you make a solid decision. You shift your energy, you break the mental loop, you release the weight of uncertainty, and you give God, the universe, or whatever you believe in, something to work with, even if the outcome isn't immediate. Your momentum returns. You ever notice that once you finally decide to make that call, have that conversation, take that leap, things start moving? That's because movement follows clarity, and clarity doesn't usually come from sitting still, it comes from stepping forward. Okay? Look, if I could speak directly to my children and grandchildren, I'd tell you this: you won't always know what to do. You'll make some wrong turns, but don't let the fear of choosing wrong keep you from choosing at all. When you're unsure, ask yourself, what kind of man or woman do I want to become? Then let your decisions reflect that version of you, even if you're not there yet. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to move in the right direction on purpose. Listen, I've had a lot of situations where I've had to make that decision, and the decision was hard because of situations and circumstances. I talk about the situation where I went on a nutrition journey. I wanted to lose weight. My wife and I decided to hire a nutrition coach, and she had a very stringent program. And so it required a lot of sacrifices, mentally, physically, just a lot of things that we had to commit to doing. And so I made the decision that I wanted to go along with the program. And what happened was I got very, very sick. I mean, really sick. I got so sick that sometimes days I could not move, trying to get me to the place where I didn't eat certain foods. There were times when I couldn't eat, didn't want to eat. I mean, I was just laid up. I was in a really bad place. My wife got worried. My nutrition coach even got worried and wanted me to stop. Okay. But I didn't want to stop because I mean, they were worried that I was going to be gone, taken out, right? But it wasn't time for me to go. It was time for me to change. And so I was tired. I was fatigued. I was hurting. I was in pain, and I didn't want to do it. I just really didn't want to do it. But I wanted what was on the other side of doing it. So I made the change. I made the decision to do it anyway. All right. And so I pushed past, the things that were challenging me, holding me back. I pushed past those things because I wanted what was on the other side. And I knew in order for me to get there, I'd have to go through. So I made the decision to move forward, and I committed to that decision in spite of how I felt. There's a difference in feeling and doing. So I made the decision to do and move forward. As a result of it, my whole eating habits changed, my whole mindset and mentality about eating changed, and nutrition and taking care of myself, got me off medications and different things. So that's what I took control of my body. I took control of my situation because I took control of my mental state, made the decision, made the commitment to go with that. Look, let me close by saying this. If decision fatigue has been slowing you down, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not weak, you're just tired. And tired doesn't mean broken, it means you've been carrying a lot. But today, you can set some of that weight down. You don't need 50 or more options. You need one good step. So here's a challenge. This week, choose one decision that maybe you've been avoiding, and make it, even if it's small, even if it's scary, even if it's just the next best step, because that one decision, it might be the key that opens the next door. All right. So look, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it going forward. Keep adapting, keep adjusting, and keep reaching for those higher heights. I'd like to recommend a book for you. It's called The One Thing. It's called The One Thing. You'll find it in the show notes here a little bit later. But keep reaching for those higher heights. Take care. Take charge. God bless. We'll see you the next time on the Shattered Mindset podcast.